Okay, this is question number 39, and I wanted to take a quick look at a slope field. So this is kind of the hardest version of a slope field question that you would receive as a multiple choice question in terms of pick the differential equation that goes with the slope field. So the first thing that I'm always going to do is I'm going to look and see if I have columns of slope the same or rows of slope that are the same. And I do not see that consistently across the board here. I do see one column of slopes that's the same right here. So it looks like at x equals -1, my slope is 0. But then when I go to x equals 0 or x equals -3 or something like that, now I have all different slopes. They're changing as you go up and down that column. So the reason that the column would be the same is if your slope, your differential equation only has an x in it and not a y. So I'm noticing letter choice E over here has only an x in it, and therefore it doesn't matter what y is. So as I go to x equals -1, y equals 1, x equals -1, y equals 2, all of those points I have the same slope and it's 0. So if that was true for, again, all the columns across the entire slope field, each one of these, then I would select E, or I would rule out anything that's in terms of multiple variables, my x and my y. So in this case, I can rule out that one since my columns are changing. The other thing I look for is rows of slope the same, and I only have one row of slopes the same, and that's at y equals 0. If I go up to the next row, the slopes are changing, and etc. Same thing as I move along other rows. So if all of the rows were the same, or across an entire row, this slope was the same, and it was the same here and the same there, and the entire row had the same slopes, then I would be looking for a differential equation that just has a y in it. Well, it turns out all of those have both x and y. So I did the easy elimination. Now I got to dig in a little bit more. So let's go back to those two things that I highlighted. And the one that I highlighted, actually the second one, maybe I'll start with that. My slope is 0. That's what all these little horizontal tangents mean, or horizontal little lines. Slope is 0 when y equals 0. So x can be changing. Y has to be 0. So I'm going to look and see dy dx when y is 0 is 0. So I'm going to do a quick plug in and see if I plug in a 0 for y, do I get 0? Yes. When I plug in 0 here, I still get 0. When I plug in 0 here, I still get 0. And then when I plug in here, x times 0, that goes to 0, and I have plus x. So I believe that I can eliminate d because, again, when I plug in y equals 0, x is changing. My slope is x, not 0. The other ones all went to 0, and therefore I still have 3 answer choices left. So I'm going to go to this one, and this is my interpretation of this. My slope is 0 when, this time it's when x equals -1. So dy dx is 0 when x equals -1. So now I'm going to go back here and plug in, and if I plug in a -1 for x, then I have -1y. That's not 0. It's gone. When I plug in a -1 for this x, I get a -y minus y. That's a -2y. That's not 0. I'm trying to get 0. When I plug in a -1 here, -y plus y, that's always going to be 0. So C is the only one that's checking out for all of both of those two kind of slopes that I know. Okay, now if I wasn't able to get it just from that, then I would just pick a random point, and I'd probably try to go different quadrants. So I don't know, maybe I'd go 2, 1, and pick a point here, plug in x and y. Notice my slopes are all positive in this quadrant here. My slopes are all negative here, so apparently when I change my x to negative, but keep my y positive, that makes my slope negative. And it's probably easiest just to pick a couple random points and try them. Just don't pick a whole bunch of random points here. You're going to be checking slopes all day. And you're not really intended to know that this is +2 versus +3, or you're not supposed to necessarily be able to pick out the exact values. So think positives and negatives, and that should pretty much get you through one of these questions. Okay? Hopefully that helps. I'm going to do a couple more videos, so follow along if you are stuck on any of these.